Yeah.
Welcome back. We start this episode right where we left off at the end of the last one, with me fitting the inlet manifold to the engine.
I think it's time for some cardboard.
With a set of templates needed for the manifold support bracket made, the process was the same as always, starting with drawing around them onto some 2mm steel. With the upper half of the bracket made, I began to make the lower one. Now I could have made these two parts as one and just bent the bracket into shape, however I didn't have a large enough piece of steel to do this, and that would have left me with enough material to make the rest of the support bracket. Unfortunately, when you're just some guy working in a small one-car garage and not some show with a massive production budget behind you, you sometimes have to do things like this, working with what you've got. To help add some lightness to the bracket, I got the hole saw out and drilled some big holes. These had to be placed in such a way that they would not interfere with the steady bar part of the bracket. With the parts of the inlet support bracket either bolted in place or held in place using various welding magnets, I could then tack weld them together. With the parts of the bracket tack welded together and yet another cardboard template made, I began to make the parts of the support bracket that would also double up as the upper steady bar bracket. Once again, with the part held in place using various welding magnets, it could be tack welded in place. The next step in making the inlet manifold support bracket required the steady bar that would link it to the subframe. This started with me machining a couple of rings that were the correct size for some mini upper steady bar bushes. I used mini steady bar bushes mainly because I had them, and also if I needed stiffer bushes I could replace them with some polyurethane ones which are readily available. Unfortunately, my memory card filled up at this point, so I missed a bit where I finished parting off the 2 rings and making the rest of the steady bar. Oh well, moving on. With the steady bar made and the bushes with their respective sleeves fitted, I could then line it up with the manifold support bracket and the subframe to mark where the holes needed to go. But once I had to drill the holes using my power drill rather than a drilling machine, as unfortunately the bracket wouldn't fit under the drilling machine's chuck. For the second gusset, I was able to clamp it in place and use the one I had just drilled to mark the position of the hole. It could then be drilled using the drilling machine. With the second gusset drilled, I then used a bolt and the standard spacer that goes through the bushes in Mini's steady bar to hold it in place, ready for welding. With the manifold support bracket bolted back onto the engine, I could use it to align the steady bar and mark the position of the bolt hole on the subframe.
I've finished making this manifold support bracket and built the little tie bar that links between this stud and set holes in there. With this all built, I can now look at the final job that needs to be done to this subframe, which is sort out the cable management for the battery cable. The battery cable wants to run somewhere over the top here, run up the strut tower and along the front face of this bar. Most of that route can be done with simple P-clips, however I don't want to drill and tap into this plate because where the bolts go through it's going to interfere potentially with suspension. So the first job is to make up a little set of cable tie mounts and then weld them to this.
The cable tie mounts are made from some strips of steel and pressed into shape using a hydraulic crimp tool. With a total of 3 cable tie mounts made, I then roughly marked the position of where they needed to go on the subframe. With the areas marked, I then cleaned back the metal using a wire wheel and a drill before giving the area a coat of weld-free primer. With the position of the cable tie mounts remarked, I held them in place using a magnet and then welded them to the subframe. With the cable tie mounts welded in place, I just needed to drill a hole for a P-clip and then the engine and gearbox to come back out the subframe and the jig.
Apart from the holes that I need to drill to mount the P-clips that hold the battery cable in place, and a couple of seams that need to be welded that I can't access because of the jig, that's everything on this subframe done. So this is all going to come back out again now, and hopefully this will be good enough to be shot blasted in the next couple of days and then ready for paint.
As well as sending the subframe out to be shot blasted, the engine mounts and various other brackets were also being sent out, so these two had to be removed from the engine. With the frame being supported in a jig while on its back, I marked and drilled the holes for the final 3 P-clips that I needed to hold the battery cable in place. With the holes drilled for the P-clip bolts, I could then remove the subframe from the jig. I will admit I forgot to tap the holes for the P-clips at this stage, however I did remember to do them when I got the subframe back from the shop blasters. Graceful. With the subframe removed from the jig, I could finally weld the last few seams that I couldn't previously access. The first step in doing this was to clean the areas using a wire wheel and a drill. I'm not going to lie, it was kind of nerve-wracking welding these parts as the inside is threaded for the tail bolts. Had I distorted them, it would have been an absolute nightmare trying to remove them and replace them with some new bosses. Well, we got the subframe and engine mounts all back from Shop Blasters earlier. I'd say they've done a very nice job. So this is now all ready to be painted. We're going to hit it initially with some etch primer, and then we've got a satin black chassis paint that's going to be used to put the final coat on it. Well, that's it for this episode. Come back next time when we start preparing the engine ready to go back into the car. If you've enjoyed this episode, then please hit that like button and share. If you want to stay up to date with the build, then please subscribe to my channel, and you can also follow my build thread on the mini forum, the link to which is in the description below. Once again, thanks for watching.